Mario. Mario started out with the English, and very early on we are in new territory. This move bishop b4, I've seen a lot by Anand recently, and I know one moves knight d5. I mean, white has many moves here, right? You go e3, which is a little bit rare, but okay, c6, and now, well, maybe d4, knight f3 are more typical here. Okay, queen c2, knight f6, knight f3, queen e7, bishop e2, castle. But now e4, this is not, I don't like this move. You could either maybe just challenge this bishop on a3. Just challenge the bishop. Probably take, probably go e4, and then you put a knight on d4, play b4, bishop b2. And it's an imbalanced position, quite interesting. Black has more space, but you have the bishop pair. Interesting position. Because the problem with e4 is, for one, you're moving a pawn twice in the opening, right? You're not making development move. And for the other, you are weakening the square long term, as both your pawns have moved past this square and cannot cover it anymore. So those are the problems attached to this move. There's also a concrete problem. Black could have played d5 right away, and that's actually just what I said in the last game too, right? If your opponent plays slow, and in this case you are, I guess, the opponent, because you played a little bit slow here in the opening, then you can often punish it by playing in the center right away. And this looked really attractive. d5 takes, knight takes, and black goes e4. He will pick up his pawn later on, say knight d4, rook d8, and already is in the driver's seat here. So just general rule of thumb, develop your pieces in the opening. Of course, this e4 move might be looming and a little bit annoying, but in general, develop your pieces, castle, and don't play your queen twice or your pawns twice usually, in general, right? I mean, all of these rules have exceptions, but most openings go like that. Okay, let's see the game. Castle, a3. Yeah, and this structure kind of reminds me of a Roy Lopez, with the difference that the bishop's on e2 instead of c2. Well, I mean, I guess there are a few differences here, but the problem is that the square d4 is weakened, and it's really difficult to get this typical break in with d4. So it's not even that clear where you're playing here, right? I mean, the other break would be to go f4, but that's not easy to accomplish. You would need to move your king, need to move your knight. It's quite slow. So it's already it feels easier to play for black. Bishop d2. Maybe you should challenge the strong bishop here on b6 by going bishop e3 and just play this position. I think that would have been a better choice. Okay, you go bishop d2, knight f8. For white, for black, it's really easy to play. He plays his knight maneuvers and just improves the position. Whereas for you, where are you playing? Rook ae1, knight h5, and here you had a golden opportunity to turn around the course of the game. Tactics, always look out for tactics, and that's a typical one. Nice knight moves to h5, either with the bishop or the queen on this d1 h5 diagonal. There is this discovered attack, knight takes e5, often the position. Here, of course, it's a little twist, because first one might think, well, knight takes, queen takes, and maybe that's also where you stopped in your calculations, because you saw, okay, queen is defending knight, I have lost a piece, but there's d4. Deflecting the queen, we can see the queen doesn't have any squares along the along the fifth rank, and black will lose the knight, and suddenly it has all turned around, right? You have opened the position up and you're better. Black should probably go queen f6 because, and then you just take an h5. Because if black takes on d4, there's bishop c3, queen takes e4, bishop d3, and the rook on e8 is loose, so black has to give up his queen. Queen takes e1, and not queen e2, queen takes e1, and obviously you are enjoying a very nice position with good winning chance here. Of course, black has some material for the queen, but only white can win this position, that's for sure. So that was really a great chance to turn around the turn of events here. So be on the lookout. I mean, now you know about this motive. I'm not sure what you missed there. Maybe you just didn't look at this move. Maybe you didn't expect the chance, but always be on the lookout, right? Always be alert. Knight c3, bishop b6 comes back, king h2, and the knight is coming in quite unpleasant. f5, yeah, knight g1. It's not easy to recommend better moves for you here. It's just uncomfortable position for you to play. Knight takes, queen takes, f4. Okay, this is helping you tremendously. Now the pawn is hanging, you play a4, rook f8, now queen h5. That's like a pseudo-active move. It looks nice, but it doesn't really accomplish much, and actually the queen can end up in danger. You should have just gone knight f3 here, and you don't have to fear the black attack too much, I would say. It looks as if you can defend, and then maybe you can do something at some point on the queen side yourself, right? Maybe even in the right moment you can play d4 finally and get some play going yourself. Mario, thanks for confirming that you stopped the analysis after queen takes e5. Yeah, and that happens very often, that we see a move and we just stop. And that's also a concept talked about in the book I mentioned, Thinking Inside the Box by Agard. He's like talking about overcoming resistance. We calculate a line, and somewhere it looks like the opponent has a good move, and it looks like the line doesn't continue, and then we need to look hard. Okay, sometimes there is no continuation and it's a good move and the line doesn't work. But sometimes, that was the case here, there is something, the line continues, and we need to look for it actively to find it. Okay, back to the game, queen h5. Here black had a surprising resource, which is a rook f6. Very odd move at first. But the point is, I'm just making any move now. If you play b5, for example, black can go f3, and now this is what I was talking about. The queen is actually in danger here on f3 and on h5 because of the knight takes f3. There's knight f4 and rook g6 coming. So this is, well, or after queen h4, I mean knight can also take on d3, but a queen on h4, I'm just trying to see if there's any direct knockout here, but it doesn't look like. Knight takes g2, king takes g2. Doesn't work quite yet. But knight takes d3, for example. So rook takes f6 was an interesting option. But the opponent didn't play it. He played queen h4, when in the end game, without the queens on the board, certainly the position is equal. So we go through the next moves fairly quickly because I think they were all quite sensible. g4 was necessary here, closing down the position makes sense. Knight e7, and now you can play yourself on the queen side. That's also very sensible. Takes, h5, g5, keep it closed. Absolutely. Knight g6. And here rook a8 It's very natural to get into the black position, but you didn't pay enough attention to your opponent's resources. Then you probably would have noticed d5 as an option, which happened after rook a8, and black's opening up the position. So some simple prophylaxis here, knight c3, would have stopped that. Just knight c3, and you can go rook a8 next move. And black is really not having any counterplay here, so this is definitely a pleasant position for white. Not sure if it's winning or anything like that, but you can try. And black has to pretty much watch how you improve your position. So knight c3, keeping d5 out of the position. Rook a8, d5, takes, 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 takes. Rook a5, b6, rook b5. And now your opponent goes wrong. He takes on e4 when rook b8, like your writing, would have kept the balance. But after d takes e4, d takes e4, now suddenly, well, very simple chess, right? 2 pawns are hanging. And black cannot be defending both. Right, maybe he missed that here after bishop c4. Maybe you want to play that. Maybe he missed that his knight is hanging on g6. Possibly. Still, this seems like it was a more critical try. But you have excellent winning chance here, for sure. Okay, rook b8, knight takes e5. Okay, and now the position is just overwhelming here for white. You are up a pawn, you have more active pieces, the king is coming in, you win another pawn. And there's really not much else to say about this game, and your opponent resigned right here. Okay. So I think the biggest takeaway from this game is your opening play, because the opening really determined the course of the game, since when you play this move e4, maybe even earlier, the other moves, I don't know, it just didn't feel like much was going on there for you in terms of an advantage. So you definitely want to look at this move bishop b4, maybe look at knight d5, or I guess some other options here, g3 or what have you. Queen b3 I think is another move. But then this move e4 really, I mean, besides the point that black has this d5, which is immediately unpleasant, just strategically you have a problem here, because where are you going to play? For black, the position is really easy to play. He doesn't have this weakness to worry about like you do, and he'll just develop his pieces, and like he did, brought his knights to the king side, played with f5, very easy chess for black, whereas you're struggling to find a plan. So that's really the takeaway here. You want to make sure with what you play in the opening, you want to check how it affects the rest of your game, and here this was a strategic problem for you because you were just lacking a clear plan to create play, whereas for your opponent was really easy to play. Okay, and then we had this missed tactic. Well, I've already talked about it. The takeaway there is obviously overcome resistance. Don't stop the calculation once there's one move that you don't like, and just check briefly if there's any way to continue. And then in the end game, I would say there was this moment where you could have be a little bit more alert to your opponent's options and played one prophylactic move to stop any kind of play by him, and then you just have a lasting advantage. Alright, let me check the chat if you made any comments. And you're saying, Niclas, after e4 I felt suffocated for many moves. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's not a comfortable position to play. Okay, let me check this really quick. You played queen h5 because you had 8 minutes on a clock and you were afraid of d5. Ah, I see. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Queen h5. Where's that? You were afraid of d5. And I guess taking on b4. But this again is helping you. It's opening up the positions. Your pieces are already lined up on the e file. So if you play knight f3, if now black goes d5, that would only help you. You could just take, queen takes b4, and now of course you need to do something about knight, but maybe just queen c2 seems fine, and you have immediate pressure on the pawn e5, and you're definitely back in the game. This rook b1 is an option. This looks pretty decent for white. All right. All right, Mario, thanks for sending in the game, and also thanks for your support, of course. I hope that was insightful, helpful.